Hello again. Well, it's Mr. Archie Stuff here. I'm in the workshop with this homemade gramophone that I made over the holiday period. And as I noticed, and as some of you noticed, it was rather quiet. And I thought before I started to implement some changes to try and improve that, I'd do a sound test. So I've got an app running on my phone in front of the horn. You should be able to see the needle fluttering in front of the camera there on the screen. And I'm going to play a record, or at least a bit of a record, and I'm going to play the same bit 3 times over, hopefully, to get a bit of an average between plays, just in case there's any external noise like rain or birds or planes or anything like that. Well, I didn't take note of the average ratings or the average readings during that, although of course it'll all be on the camera for me to look at later. But the max readings were all around 79, 80 decibels. So I think that's going to be the figure to beat. Now there definitely are a few places this can be improved. This contraption here, which is sort of a gimbal, the tube goes in and it comes out over there, but the CD here isn't sealed down airtight, or not completely airtight, and the tube coming out doesn't join to the tube inside, so the whole of the inside of this box here is sort of an air chamber, which probably doesn't help. The other thing is that this plastic tube over here This is a bit of a nightmare really. I mean, it sort of looks the part, but if you look, it actually goes down to a very small nozzle, which is completely wrong for transmitting sound. The sound should, or the tube should go from a small bore down here and basically increase in diameter as it gets nearer the horn, because the horn does that as well. And that's basically how it amplifies it. So a combination of poor fitting and probably this tube here, so this bit here definitely, but also probably the concertina effect is also bouncing sound around in a way that's not very helpful. Probably all contribute to the sound not being anything like as loud as you might expect, because the sound box is fine. I'm pretty sure this is a fairly cheap 1950s British made sound box, but it sounds okay. And the horn itself, although it definitely has seen better days, I mean, you can see the holes in it there. There's no reason why that shouldn't give a fairly decent sound. Right, well, I've done a bit of a rebuild, so let's just work through this and see what's changed. So, horn, that's still in the same position. I've worked a little bit on the joint between the horn and the elbow down there, just taped it around there to make sure there's no leakage. There's still a short bit of cardboard tubing there joining onto the plastic piping. Now that plastic piping there is I think much shorter and much more direct than the black plastic piping I was using before. This piping has been bent by heat. I filled it up with salt. I'm not sure if that was a good idea, but I didn't have any sand, and I bent it into that sort of shape. Now moving along, I've changed the tone arm support, so the pipe support here, so it's just a much smaller arrangement there. Here I've got a piece of plastic piping where I had cardboard before. Now when the tone arm moves, you probably can't see, but this piping turns as well. However, this piping doesn't turn, and under here is a sort of collar or tube made of cardboard, and I've covered it over with felt and then just zip tied it into position. So basically this arrangement here actually converts from a moving pipe to a non-moving pipe there. Now the actual gimbal arrangement, it's very similar. I have completely rebuilt it though, so it's got a bearing on the inside that you can't see and on the outside. Same mount here. It has a bit of plastic piping inside, so the sound goes, or the piping goes all the way through this and out to the piping over here. The sound isn't let out into this container like it was previously. The tone arm itself is completely the same. I've not touched that at all. I've repositioned it very slightly so that the tracking is better. Now what I have noted in testing is that this record is actually starting to wear very slightly, or maybe not very slightly, but certainly there's a little bit greying on the grooves. That is going to be probably due to this contraption. The tone arm itself isn't particularly heavy. I haven't changed the needle a great deal. I have got a fresh one in now, or a fresher one in now, but this is obviously wearing a bit, so I've had a look at the tracking because that will be part of the issue. I'm still not 100% convinced it's right, but it's probably better than it was. So essentially that's what I've changed. And I'm just going to mount the camera up on the tripod and we'll give it a sound test and see what it sounds like and see how loud it is as well.
With a red and rosy cheek, to be way high.
Well, those are the tests. Now, I've done some analysis of the videos and put some figures up on the screen, and I'm sorry to say that the improved gramophone doesn't really seem to be any better than the previous version, at least not as far as the app on my phone is concerned. The max volume isn't any louder or isn't any greater. I've had a few test runs where it's sort of matched it, but it's certainly not any louder. Some of the average values are louder or are bigger. However, this may be to do with the way I've done the tests, because the average takes into account all the dead time at the beginning and the end of the sample where the record isn't actually being played. And I think with the second set of tests I was just faster at putting the sound box on the record, so there's less dead time, so the average shot up faster. What I have noticed though is the actual sound is coming out of the gramophone horn much more so than it was before. And if I just pick the arm up now, hopefully you can hear that that is actually coming out the horn. In the first version of this, the sound sort of emanated from the whole gramophone. It wasn't really coming out of the horn, although if you put your ear down to the horn you could hear it. It certainly was coming through the horn a bit. Now this will probably be the last outing of this gramophone in its current form, partly because the record is actually beginning to wear. I've noticed sort of little grey marks on the record, and that's an indication that the needle is wearing away at the grooves, and that's probably due to just the design of this. It's not. I don't think it's the weight. I think it's probably more to do with the tracking. The tracking's not perfect, and also the sound box is probably not quite at the right angle, both in this sort of direction and also you know, this sort of direction here. Before I go for this video, I'm just going to play a bit of the other side. But anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and if you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Mr. RG Stuff.
with a leg in a rusty pony, give me with a leg in a rusty pony, give me with a leg in a rusty pony, and I am the morning.